What's your I hated that person, but they didn't deserve that story? A fresh ex was planning on getting inspirational words tattooed on her wrist. One of the words was friendship. The tattoo came out as friendship. I didn't really hate her, but you know, an ex is an ex. My kindergarten teacher. She was horrible and abusive toward children. The kind who tied kids to a chair or put duct tape on the mouth of chatty kid. She had a car accident a few years ago. While she was driving with two of her grandchildren, a drunk driver hit her. She was in a coma for a few weeks, but recovered physically. The two kids, however, didn't make it. She fell into deep depression. Last I heard, she was still in a psych ward. My coworker. She was mean, petty, rude, unhelpful, and an all-around bully. Pretty much a 16-year-old mean girl in a 35-year-old adult's body. I almost quit my job a couple times because of her and another coworker just like her. Last year she was diagnosed with breast cancer and it has progressed to stage IV. She's been missing more and more work and should be out on permanent disability because she is dying and should be spending time with her kids, not coming to work. There is this parent at the school I work at whose kid falsely accused a teacher of physical abuse. The kid was easily proved to be a liar and even admitted her injuries were fake. Well, that didn't stop her mom from going all in with a lawsuit and making that innocent teacher's life a living hell. A few months later, the girl went to the grocery store with her grandfather, came home, and discovered her mother's savagely murdered body. Her ex-con dad was there while she was at the store and killed her mother. I never liked the girl or the mom, but damn. When I first began freshman year in high school, I was bullied mercilessly by a junior. I have no idea why this guy hated me, but he did. He was bigger than me and stronger than me and would push me around, call me names, make fun of other people if he saw them talking to me, etc. I'm old and when I was in high school if you told an adult you were being bullied they'd tell you useless crap like, just ignore him and he'll go away. That never worked. It got so bad I thought about dropping out of school, thought about suicide, didn't know how to deal. And then one day I get to school and see a couple girls he was friends with crying. See a couple teachers with very concerned looks on their faces. And then when homeroom starts the principal gets on the PA and announces that my bully had been in a car accident and died the night before. He certainly didn't deserve to die. I wouldn't support the death penalty for bullying, but man, did my life ever change after he died. I finally started making friends. I could walk through the halls not worried about getting picked on. I really started to flourish academically. I got into a good college and now have a good career and life. I think there's a pretty good chance I would have dropped out of high school, and a smaller but still real chance I would have committed suicide if this kid hadn't died. Guy from my high school that everyone hated and thought was an asshole. Never spoke 2 words to me so I have no first-hand knowledge. He was the star quarterback and destined for Division I glory like his older brother. End of senior year he breaks his leg and all his scholarships evaporated. Ended up at a Div 3 school or something. Never made a splash. Now, he's divorced and legitimately insane. He constantly posts gibberish on his Facebook page. Like just crazed musings several times a day. Then Google translates them into various random languages and posts those. One time he posted all of his high school football commendations, newspaper clippings, and Div 1 scholarship recruitment letters. Literally over 100 pics. He is the living embodiment of glory days. A very sad and disturbed guy. My 8th grade math teacher. I didn't hate her. She was always really nice to me, but all of my classmates hated her. I remember one time a girl asked her how she felt about her younger sister getting married before her. She cried in front of all of us. She died of breast cancer and she never got married. In high school, we had a math teacher who hated our class and by the end of the school year, she made a vow she would fail every single one of us for her class. Before exams started, however, she took a trip to Eritrea where she got on a bus with some other tourists. A few days later, we got a call from our guidance counselor that she'd been gunned down by robbers on some dirt road. No math exam that year. A guy my cousin dated that burned our apartment down because he was mad at her. About 8 years later he was killed by a prison guard spraying pepper spray directly in his face like 6 times in a row. Had an art teacher in middle school. Was obvious he was just biding time till retirement and hated kids now. Not that we were angels or anything. He wasn't half bad at art either, but can tell he was kinda disappointed in where his life ended up. Anyways, goes on vacation in the mountains and ends up having a heart attack and driving off a cliff. He didn't make it. A girl I went to primary school with bullied me relentlessly throughout reception to year 5. It quickly got to the point where my parents and teachers were on first name basis due to all the meetings they had about it. In year 3, I think, her older brother was killed in a quad bike accident. She and her older sisters were out of school for about 2 weeks, and her brother had a memorial tree planted for him at the school and the secondary school he went to. When she came back, we were okay with each other for a bit. Think I remember comforting her several times after it had happened. Then it just went back to normal. My French teacher lost her husband because he drowned. I didn't hate her at all, but many people from my class did. One time during French class, one of them screamed "man overboard" and everyone lay on the ground. My teacher ran out of the room, crying. My ex was a real ass to me, cheating, screaming, throwing things, the whole deal. 3 months after I finally broke up with him, I got a call from a friend of his. He, at 20, had dropped dead on a bus and no one knew why. It turned out he had undiagnosed testicular cancer that spread to his lungs, closing his airway. Wouldn't have ever spoken to him again, but he didn't deserve to die. It took a transfer at work to get away from a crazy co-worker. A few months later I was asked to come back and cover for a couple days. I was really hoping Crazy wouldn't be there, but she showed up, only for the manager to have someone take her to the hospital. She was having severe abdominal pain that ended up being a ruptured ovary. I didn't want to spend a day with her, but I didn't want her gone that badly. There were these 2 jerks in my gym class. One day they had to go retrieve a soccer ball that had fallen into the bushes. They stepped into a hornet's nest. They got stung everywhere. Apparently one got stung in the privates. They didn't deserve it, but I did like that I got to leave gym half an hour early. Things Megyn Kelly does not deserve. A TV show. Media attention. Sexual harassment. Girl at my school. Total social climber and itched about people constantly. Was totally obsessed with horse riding and got into a serious accident where she fell off her horse and hit her head. Was in a coma for a week and currently can't ride again for 5 years. A fairly unkind but pretty and popular girl from my high school had an accident while getting ready for prom. She was checking the back of her hair or something, IDK, when her large mirror fell on her. I believe it hit head first and shattered glass all over her. It sliced up her face, shoulders, and arms bad enough to put her in the hospital. Ducking horrific. Edit. Alright. The blonde was overkill. And IDK why I put the quotes, or do I? Kid I knew in school. Bullied me all the time. Consistently in trouble. Got me in trouble a few times too. Finally expelled. Good riddance. Heard intermittent stories over the next few years of him being in and out of trouble. Reconnected with him through a mutual friend 20 years later and found out he'd had a very abusive childhood and bounced around various foster homes. That explained everything. We've been friends for several years now. He's happily married and living a great life. Former co-worker was rich to everyone and got away with doing nothing. Everyone could see it and everyone hated her for it. She got pregnant and milked it for everything it was worth. Baby died in utero just a few days before due date due to a blood clot in the umbilical cord. Would never wish that sort of thing on anyone. My ex-wife, who we will call Jane, left me and moved in with a family friend, who we will call Steve. Both were in their mid-40s. Jane swore up and down that it was purely platonic. They wound up moving across the country and getting a 1-bedroom apartment together. Now, I'm pretty trusting, but that raised some red flags that this might not be platonic after all. Jane was looking for alimony, which she would be entitled to, but not if she was living with Steve as a couple. So I tried to gather evidence that they were a couple while she stonewalled and delayed turning over the evidence. The divorce dragged on for something like 18 months longer than it should have. Eventually, we agreed on a compromise. I would pay her alimony, but only for another year. She'd be entitled to another 12 years if she weren't with Steve, and only at about 40-50% of the dollar amount she'd ordinarily be entitled to. 2 weeks after we signed the settlement agreement, Steve dropped dead of a stroke. Kid that used to bother me every day during middle school hung himself. The real kicker is I had wished this many times. Substitute teacher in elementary school. I think it was 4th or 5th grade. She asked us if we wanted to go outside for recess. Everyone else voted yes. But I asked if I could go to the nurse instead because I was feeling really ill. She didn't believe me. I think that she thought I was just lazy and didn't want to play outside because I was a fat kid. She wouldn't let me go to the nurse. And she had this really nasty smirk on her face when she told me I was outvoted. We get outside and the cold wind in my face is making me feel worse and worse. Finally, I decide that I have to go to the nurse. I make my way to where the teacher is standing. And as soon as I open my mouth to tell her, there was no holding back or stopping it. I vomited all over her shoes. Part of me felt vindicated because now she knew that I was telling the truth. But she didn't deserve that. I dated a guy once who cheated on me. It was not fun. It was a long time before I felt like I could entirely trust anyone again. It was made significantly worse by the fact that they started a relationship, and their respective Facebooks were filled with pictures of them looking all lovey-dovey and sweet. Because they were both friends with my group of friends, they were constantly in my immediate circle, which in turn led to me losing a lot of friends when they didn't see why I was so hurt that they basically kept pushing me to interact with them. Anyway, the girl he cheated on me with cheated on him. Shocker. I know. Absolutely broke him in half. He had been just about ready to propose, bought the ring, and apparently found out the day before her birthday, when he'd planned to do it, that she had been sleeping with his brother and had had an abortion of a child that might have had either one of the siblings as a father. It was a whole ducking thing. I'll be honest, I kind of relished what I saw as the karma of it all. But this was years ago. I'm long since over what he did to me. We didn't have a great relationship to begin with. And even though he was a it for cheating on me, it probably wouldn't have lasted that much longer. But she really did a number on him. To my knowledge, he hasn't dated anyone else since. And the whole thing made him really cold. I'm not sorry they broke up. And I'm not sorry he realized how much it hurt to be cheated on. But I do hope he finds someone who makes him happy in the future. As long as he treats her right.